Welcome to today's episode on the Gurmat Experience, where we reflect on one of the most prestigious and intellectually rich events in the field of Sikh studies. The 9th Dr. Jasbir Singh Saini Chair in Sikh Studies Conference under the distinguished Professor Pashura Singh was hosted at the University of California, Riverside. The 2025 year theme, Precarious Futures, Sikhs and Sikhism in an Uncertain World, brought together leading scholars, academics, activists, artists and thinkers from around the globe to explore timely and critical issues, ranging from gender and identity to artificial intelligence, mental health, transnational repression and the resilience of Sikhi as a living, breathing tradition. It was an honour for Devinder Singh Panissa, founder of Gurmat Therapy and Gurmat Psycho-Spiritual Psychology, to be invited this year and to speak at this prestigious conference. His contributions brought a psycho-spiritual and ontological lens rooted in Gurmat to the heart of the academia dialogue. Bridging Eastern wisdom traditions and contemporary therapeutic insights, in this conversation, Dav reflects on his experience of the conference, the panel he was part of, and the evolving role of Gurmat therapy in both academic and community spaces. Welcome, Davji.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for inviting me again. Honor to be here again.
Honoured to have you in our presence.
Thank you.
So, Davji, to begin, can you tell us a little bit about the conference itself? What is the significance of this annual gathering, and how would you describe your overall impression of this year's event?
I think the first thing is the credit needs to go to Professor Pashura Singh and Professor Arvind Mandir and Professor Pashura Singh's team. The way this organization, the conference was organized was absolutely seamless, is the word I will use. So I just want to get that out of the way. The conference itself was absolutely mind-blowing in so many different ways. Every speaker was bringing new light. I mean, there was every speaker or every presentation had something so valuable and relevant for today's life that it is difficult to pick one out because all of them were so special. But some of the ones that really did have a very deeply emotive space for me was the Love Revolution presentation, the plight of Sikhs and Sikh women in Pakistan, some of the other areas on teaching Rag and Kirtan to children, AI and Sikhs, where do they stand, and just so much more. It was so rich that I'm still trying to process so much of it, because each one of those presentations kind of left me with what I would call a whole bagfuls of content that I would need to present, process, and appreciate the relevance of what was shared by these remarkable individuals.
Wow, it sounds amazing and very innovative.
Absolutely. And I think we can't understate the relevance of such events, such conferences. Firstly, Sikh studies to be positioned within the academic space has been a struggle over the last 15, 20 years. And for Professor Pashura Singh and Professor Mandir and some of the others, these guys are they're the leading lights in this area, not just in terms of bringing a platform where Sikh studies, I mean, we have to call it Sikh studies because it's much broader than religion and all that kind of stuff, can be brought onto a table. And as a result of their work and their effort, their publications, their books, it is a remarkable feat that will only be realized in 20, 30 years from today. For example, 20 years ago, I worked with my colleague Arvind to set up the first Sikh journal, which was Sikh Formation, and it's celebrating its 20th year this year.
Wow.
So goes to show things that were done many, many years ago. It's only now we're starting to realize, first, the far-sightedness of some of these individuals, and secondly, the commitment. And just on that commitment, let me just share with you, and I hope Professor Pashura Singh doesn't mind me sharing this with you, but unfortunately they'd fallen down and injured their back a few days before, which meant difficult to stand up difficult to lie down, right? Unable to stand up, unable to lie down. And Professor Peshora was there from the morning, present at every presentation, and even the evening reception. And whether they were taken there by a wheelchair, etc., it goes to show the dedication that these individuals have to simply bring the teachings of the Sikh gurus and the mystics to the world in a way that are relevant for the 21st century.
Sounds phenomenal.
Yeah,
Sounds absolutely
absolutely.
phenomenal. So,
Absolutely.
so why were you invited to speak at this conference, and what was the kind of context behind your
Well-
participation? Sorry.
Well, this is a transformative step in repositioning Guru Nanak's teachings at the heart of a global conversation that goes towards human flourishing and human health. And credit goes to Professor Irvind in particular, because it is his work that he started, and I think through the, which we were part of one of his earlier conferences on the mind, consciousness, and the brain, which was in 2018, I think. But since then, this evolution of trying to bring together the teachings of Guru Nanak, consciousness, psychology, and theology, but beyond the kind of religious constraints, but within this very open ontological framework that intersects between what I would call spirituality and science. On the panel that we were on, we had a very eminent neuroscientist, a psychiatrist, who was able to present some amazing insights, which I will speak about in a moment, and to be able to intersect, for example, the psychospiritual understanding within the Gurmat framework, which are presented, and the neuroscience, that intersection, it's a remarkable achievement of bringing together science and spirituality in a field and in front of peers that are all very much experts in their field. So it's a very big step in terms of positioning the teachings of Guru Nanak beyond the religious space.
So, how was presenting the Gurmat psycho-spiritual therapeutic health framework that you've developed through Gurmat Therapy?
Well, it was the panel consisted. Well, the panel was actually called Gurmat as Therapy in the Age of Psychic Debilitation, right? And it is evident, and it was evident even through the conference and the feedback from all the eminent speakers, the prevalence of mental anguish, mental illness that is now currently present in a whole range of students, in a whole range of academia, and everyday life with the current events unfolding around the world. So, on this panel, we had 5 individuals. We had first Dr. Amarjit Singh, who is the Langston Hughes Professor Emeritus of Ohio University, known for decades for his work in bridging literary cultural theory with lived human experience. Professor Mandir, with his groundbreaking scholarship, has opened this vital academic space where we had the intersection of Sikh philosophy, Gurmat psychology, consciousness studies, and and contemporary science. So you can imagine how incredible this platform is in terms of bringing together. There was myself, who was introducing a structured holistic health framework, which is rooted in about 25 years of psychospiritual teachings and direct application. And then we had Dr. Manpreet Kaur Singh, Professor of Psychiatry, whose contribution, particularly to do with neuro insights and the intersection of some of Guru Nanak's teachings and modern neuroscience, really was quite remarkable in terms of the work that's been done to try and understand the neurological processes in terms of mental health, mental well-being, etc. So it was a very, very useful interaction of the kind of mind-body science coming together. And then we had Manvinder Kaur, who's a doctorate researcher with University of Michigan, whose work in Punjab with drug addicts in particular took a very anthropological lens on the trauma addiction and how the Punjab community is dealing with this crisis as well, far greater than just the anxiety crisis that we are facing. So a very eminent panel, um, and this panel enabled me to, following Dr. Arvind Mande's presentation on his on bringing this intersection together. I was asked to present the Gurmat framework, and so I presented the Gurmat framework of health, which consists of the various dimensions from mental, emotional, physiological, transpersonal, pre and post death. That was the other thing. You know, there's pre-death health and there's post-death health, and then the whole epigenetic stuff. So I presented the whole model, presented the master's program that we have, and its transformative impact that we have been able to document through dissertations and through qualitative research over the last 7-8 years through the master's program on how through following this structured program, one is able to not just transform themselves and reorient themselves from a very egocentric, reductionist, psychologically dysfunctional space to a more healthy, aligned, and coherent space.
Wow, wow, wow. So the key focus of your talk was presenting the Gurmat psychospiritual health framework.
Yeah.
And how did you weave that into the wider discussions happening at that on that panel and the exploration taking place?
Well, I think each panel had its own, and there were a number of panels. Each panel had a theme. You know, it had a theme to work in. So, you know, there may be a theme to do with, and, you know, anthropology. There may be a theme to do with poetry, but there may be a theme to do with a compassion. So you can have all these different themes, but each one of our themes had its own panel. So the interaction was that there was a variety of themes through these panels, which collectively created the remarkable, comprehensive offering of this conference. And Gurmat Therapy, or Gurmat as Therapy, was just a panel.
And what do you feel was the impact of your contribution?
Well, I think the most touching remark that I had a really positive feedback. What was really interesting was that opening the space for discussing transpersonal as an aspect of health enabled a number of individuals to share with me privately some of their own transpersonal experiences, which was, I thought, very telling in themselves, that unless you open the space, it doesn't come through. And I think the most touching comment that I had was from Dr. Nikki Gurinder Kaur Singh, and she caught me and she goes, the work that you're doing, she goes, I want to leave everything I'm doing, I want to join you, and the work that you're doing is revolutionary. The work that you're doing is revolutionary. And that, like Guru Nanak. And that really touched me, you know. Yeah, those individuals that interacted with me certainly gave me positive feedback in terms of what was being brought to the table in terms of this psycho-spiritual understanding, which is the heart of Gurmat.
And how important do you think this is in the context of Sikh studies and this work?
Well,
and the ongoing work?
I think it's not just Sikh studies, Sonia. I think this is actually opening this whole new conversation on global conversation on health and what it means to be human flourishing. It is pan-human, right? And the idea that, you know, Guru Nanak's wisdom is pan-human. Why? Because everyone has a mind, and everyone has within this mind this constructed, conditioned sense of self. And this constructed, conditioned sense of self, that through its interaction gives rise to your physiological changes. Those over time give you your illness, etc. So through the teachings of Guru Nanak and through the way it's been structured by with GT, we are able to, one, come to restore mental health, two, initiate emotional health, three, bring the physiological health to some alignment and homeostasis, which then gives rise to, once this is in coherence, to the emergence of what I would call your transpersonal health.
Amazing, beautiful. Lots to process, lots to think about, lots to take away there. And if you could describe the overall energy or tone of the conference in one sentence or word, what would it be and why?
Inspirational, groundbreaking, and future proofing. 3 words I would use, because inspirational for those who were there, groundbreaking because it set, particularly with my contribution within Gurmat Therapy, it set a new field to emerge, or the possibility of it emerging in terms of research, in terms of application, in terms of clinical application. There's just so much there that needs to be investigated, and groundbreaking for that reason, and future evolving, meaning the world, the future isn't orange, the future isn't bright, the future is the teachings of Guru Nanak.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for joining us for this rich and insightful reflection on the 9th Sikh Studies Conference at UC Riverside, exploring, the different panels and conversations and very important dialogues that were happening there. And this episode highlights Dav Panissa's presence at this global gathering and highlighting not only the relevance of Gurmat therapy in our current world, but also the importance of bringing lived, embodied wisdom into academic, social, and spiritual discourse, and understanding health, coherence, and evolving consciousness. It reminds us that Gurmat is not a static tradition, but dynamic, healing, and revolutionary path that speaks directly to the challenges of our time. So if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your community, leave a review, and continue the conversation with us online at gurmatinstitute.com. You can learn about Gurmat therapy and Davinder Panissa's revolutionary and groundbreaking work at gurmattherapy.com. So until next time, thank you for listening, and may your journey inward continue with clarity, courage, and compassion. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.